Welcome back to the Expanded Minds podcast. Today, I got a special guest with me, and his name is Zeus from Project Sasquatch. How are you doing today, Zeus?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing excellent. So, would you like to introduce
Awesome.
yourself to the guests watching the podcast and also to me too?
Yeah. So I'm Zeus, with founder of Project Sasquatch Research Organization. Uh, I got on. I started researching Sasquatch 34 years ago. Well, actually, I've been into it 34 years. Um, ever since I seen my first family of Sasquatch up in Gateway, Colorado, and ever since I've seen this little family of Sasquatch, it's kind of it hit me like, what the hell is that? What are those? I've never seen anything like that. And I know my mom and dad has always talked about them because I grew up on a homestead log cabin, had a dirt floor, and my grocery list was the woods, and we they would always mention Sasquatch and stuff like that. But when I was young, I didn't care until until I seen those three Sasquatch 34 years ago. I think I was like 11 or 12 probably, and ever since then I've been obsessed. And it's I want to say almost 3 years, probably 3 years ago, I started going public with my findings, the structures, the footprints, the sightings, the vocals, all the stuff that they do out there in the woods. So you know, it's been a journey.
Yeah. So, wait, when you ran to a family of Sasquatch, what was going on? Were you just walking through the woods, and how deep were you, in the woods and everything?
Well, it was a real remote area, and we had one of those old Suburbans, and those really big four-door Suburbans, and we were going up on a camp. We were going up to camp, just basically my parents and their friends, drink some beers, hang out, uh, probably a little campfire or whatnot. So we were headed up to this location above uh, Gateway, Colorado, and the Suburban ended up breaking down. So we just decided we were going to spend the night right there. The guys were coming up, and the next morning, so I want to say 2 o'clock in the morning, I felt the Suburban rock. I almost couldn't. At first, I thought I was dreaming. You know how you get in that state where you're kind of dreaming but not dreaming, and maybe your dog is licking your arm, and you think you're dreaming about it until you
Yeah.
wake up, see it's reality. Well, I caught the last of a rock. It felt like I was on a boat or something, just kind of rocked, and got up and I looked over at my dad, and I looked up at the side window, and there's this huge black silhouette with bright glowing eyes, red glowing eyes, sitting there staring at me. And and I jumped up, and my instinct was to look at the window behind me, and there was a little short one looking, eyes glowing, and he was at the edge of the window looking at me like this. And then another, I don't know, medium sized one, probably my height now, six, maybe 6.5, 7, somewhere in that area. And it was slightly bent over looking in. And the big one, he was really hunched over looking in. I bet
Oh.
he could have been an 8 foot Sasquatch, and all their eyes are glowing. And I freaked the hell out, and I yelled, and my dad woke up, and he's like, "What the hell's going on?" And as I did that, those Sasquatch didn't just take off, like, just like they freak out and just take off. They just real fluently, just real nice, ducked out of the way, no panic. They all just went down out of the way and didn't see him anymore. It took me a couple of hours to go back to sleep, and I said I probably fell back asleep 4 in the morning or so. And my dad, uh, he fell asleep fairly quickly. It wasn't his first experience with something like that. And then the next day, the guys were fixing that. It turned out to be one of the old school fuel pumps that runs off a rocker arm, rotates in your engine. goes up in there, and as your engine turns, that's how you get your fuel into your motor. So they were repairing that, and it was like 9 o'clock the next day. I'm tired because I was up all night and I seen these things. But they were standing outside, and the dirt is a real powdery, real fine powdered dirt on the road. Almost ashy, but it's just maybe it's like that clay stuff maybe. And they were looking at the footprints going down the road, headed towards the back side of the vehicle, and then passed, and then went up the side of the road. There was 3 sets in there, and that's what I seen was 3 of them.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
So like, what's the first thing that you wanted to find out about that whole thing? Was it like why they came up to you? Was it like, what were these things? Was it like, what did you want to
It
find out about it?
it wasn't the only thing that I wanted to find out was what in the hell were these? What were these? They weren't the typical bear or lions that I see, the elk or the deer or anything like that. I wanted to find out what in the world these things are. So I remember my dad pointing structures out in the woods, X structures and stuff like that, and he would say, "This is what they do," and he used to tell me it could be some kind of a territorial marker or something of that nature, but it's some kind of. Later learned that it's some kind of visual language between them, and each one of these structures represents something. You know what I mean? I wish I really knew. I have theories, but that's all I have, is theories about, and that's why I do what I do now. Is I want to explore why, or not why, but where they came from, how long they've been here, what's their little culture like. They have a language. They definitely have a language. I've heard them talk. They mimic things out there. I want to know more about them. They're so incredibly intelligent. They're over our understanding. And even to this day, there's a lot of people that are completely closed-minded to the fact that these creatures are out there. They're not mythical. They're not made up fantasy stuff. I mean, take it from a guy like me that's seen, I don't know, probably thousands of these things. I mean, I see them all every summer. I see several of them. Thousands is probably overdoing it, but I've seen a lot. You know what I mean? I mean, every summer I have encounters, and I see them at least 5 to 10, sometimes 12 every summer. And I just my whole mission why I went public, because I never went public until I was kind of talked into it by friends. They said you have some really incredible stuff on your videos. You have some really incredible findings. I mean, it's crazy how you find these things, out there, and a lot of people they can't. People that do this will be doing it for 40 years. Older guys or females or whatever, and they have never seen one, maybe heard them, but and I get a lot of people ask me, how the hell do you find these things? Well, I growing up in the mountains, I learned to track. I used to guide grizzly hunters. I used to guide elk hunters and stuff like that. And I'm half Native American, and some of my family up in the Blackfeet Reservation have taught me a little bit about tracking and stuff like that. So throughout the years, I've kind of got in and tried to figure out how to track these creatures. They do go out of the way not to leave footprints. Sometimes they'll leave footprints in the snow, and they disappear. The footprints end, and there's no more tracks. And I find that kind of wild. Like they sprouted little wings and took off. They're a total physical being, but they have some mysterious ways about them that people don't understand, and they don't really want to understand. So if they believe in Sasquatch, they don't believe some of the aspects that Sasquatch are able to do. So there's a whole array of things out there. But I mean, taking it from a guy like me, that goes out and hunts them, in a way not to kill them, but to investigate them and find out more of their culture and try to figure out what's with all the structures out there. You know, it's some kind of it's a language. It's some kind of visual language.
So like with the structures and everything, so your dad figured, how did your dad come to the conclusion that like these, and I'll bring up some pictures later on, but how does your dad come to like the
Yeah,
conclusion that these X-shaped things are the way that they territorially communicate? Like what's the thought behind that?
that's a it's a fact of whenever you run into the areas where these like if you go into an area and you start finding X structures, uh, half teepee leaners that are always facing east. There's always 2 to 3 leaners. They're leaning up, and it's you look at it and it's so obvious, and the logs didn't come from that spot. Their areas, you start having a lot of encounters. Their footprints are everywhere in the areas. Uh, Up here where I'm at, it's really hard to get a footprint good enough to cast because it's a pine needle bedding, you know, years and years of bedding, and it's kind of cushy. So when you step on it, it kind of comes back up, but leaves a shape of an impression of a foot. So whenever my dad's pretty much like, you know, when he started learning about them, he's of course he's seen them, but every time he would get into an area and he just kind of puts 2 and 2 together, he's figuring out, well, you get to outside of that area, everything's chill, everything stops, all the wood knocking, whistling, everything, and you really don't find any footprints. But you get into that area where those structures are, when you get past the X, then you start, you know, shit really starts hitting the fan. It's like
Yeah.
their area. And and I figured out, you know, throughout the years, once you go into that area, oh, you're finding hair, you're finding footprints. They start vocalizing at you, and I believe it's because it's their territory. They're very territorial. They don't really want you in there. You know, you don't know what they're thinking. They could be violent. They could be nice. It's just like with anybody else. You just you don't know what's going through their head, and you really got to be careful of in that aspect. You know, a lot of people gift them food. That's a terrible mistake. You don't gift them food. Uh, I've had a lot of people get a hold of me, panicked and in a frenzy. Sasquatches sounds like they're coming through their wall. They'll smash on their wall in their house, and they'll throw things, throw rocks. It just harass them all night long. And I said, "Well, are you gifting them food?" Oh yeah, we got a little gifting spot just at the end of the property out there in the trees. And I said, "There you go. That's a terrible mistake to do that is to gift these creatures. Gift them toys, you know, marbles. Gift them toys. Don't gift them any food. That's a horrible mistake. I've tried to tell people this, and they end up getting in trouble over it."
Mhm. So are they? So would you consider them more like primates, more like what kind of species of animal would you kind of see them more as, or
They're
is it
more
even
like humans.
extraterrestrial?
They're more like humans. Their body shape, their hands are just like ours. Only, you know, I've seen them close enough to see uh, the aspects of their hand. You see how my thumb comes out and I could grab like so.
Yeah.
Well, I think they tend to grab a lot of logs like this and grab a lot like that because their their thumb it comes out relatively flat. They don't have it's not pulled out from my hand like that. It's more tucked in. You understand what I'm saying? It's more tucked
Yeah.
in.
Does this
Like
come from though, like you saw one up close, or was it, where does this come from?
that's I've seen them up close. I've seen them very close.
Okay.
I mean, within feet away from me.
Hmm.
And I've every Sasquatch they have the aspect of a human, but they look different. Their skin color, their hair, you know, they're all human shape, but they all look different, just like humans. You know, you got your you know your Native Americans, Mexican, all these different races. we're all human, but we all look different. Like me and you, we're human, but we look different from each other. But we fall in that category. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're
Yeah.
all human. And it goes with the Sasquatch. I've seen some like go up here at Storm Mountain. They look like Neanderthal, straight up Neanderthal looking dudes up there, just protruding foreheads. You see a picture of a Neanderthal, that's what a lot what they look like. It's pretty
Mhm.
crazy. Flat heads. A lot of Sasquatch have the conical head. These guys over here, more of a flat head. Sometimes they got like a medium cone to their head, and sometimes they're really coned. Their heads are really coned up, and their hair lengths, their skin colors. I've seen them anywhere from, a white skin color. I've seen them with, black skin, like dark black. I've seen them gray skin. I see a lot of gray skin
Wait, is that just
Sasquatch.
the mouth part? Or is that like just the entire, like what parts are others of the what parts of them have skin showing?
Generally, their hands, sometimes the tops of their hands towards the end of it, kind of the tops of their feet towards the end of their toes, and the pads on their feet too, and their face, just their face. And
Uh-huh.
some Sasquatch, I can't really tell the skin color of their face because they have a really short layer of fur all over. But a lot of them generally have what I call troll noses. They have really big noses that stick out. It's kind of weird. I mean, some of them are god awfully frightening and ugly, but you gotta hold your wits about you. You know, when you're trying to investigate them, you just you see them, you investigate, you encounter one, and then just leave. You don't want to stick around too long. You don't want to press your luck. You don't know what these things are thinking. You got your evidence. You know, get out of there. Get out of the area. You know, you don't want to upset them in any kind of way and uh, piss them off in any kind of way. Just you got your evidence. You got your footage, your pictures. You go home and you assess what just happened. You know.
Uh-huh. When you first like discovered when you first saw the Sasquatch in that when you were in the SUV, from there, what did it look like to start to find other Sasquatches?
The ones that I seen from the suburban, it was a black, just a black silhouette. I couldn't tell any facial features or anything. They just you could see the conical head. No, they generally have no neck. It's just you know like big traps, shoulders and head, and a majority of them are going to look like that when you run into them. They've got black hair and their skin is real black, and when you run into them out there in the woods, that's generally what they're going to look like. Just this black figure staring at you, and you most of the time you really can't make out facial features because they're kind of so far away. I've had their eyes. I've actually got a picture of one where their eyes are glowing white during the day.
Uh-huh.
I've not a clue what that's all about. It's
Yeah,
kind
or
of
like
again, it's over head.
I meant in terms of like, so how did you find the next Sasquatch? So you saw them the first time. How did you how does your how do you start to develop your ability to find these things, and what did it look like to find the next one? Did you like look for certain markings? Did it actually find you? Like what? How did you find the next one?
Well, just being out in the woods all the time after I seen my first Sasquatch, and I started taking in and taking my dad more serious about the of what he was trying to tell me, and he showed me a lot of things. And when we're out in the woods, immediately I started becoming obsessed with those structures out there because he would point them out. He would be like, "Look, there's an X right there, this perfect X," and so we'd take off, and I would just insist on going and exploring some of these areas when I'm younger. And as time went on, as I got out and I was just kind of obsessed with the fact of what I've seen, and I started seeing more of them going into their areas and exploring, and it almost seems like once you see one, your mind opens up to the fact. when you go out, you start seeing more. I mean, they're there anyway, whether you like it or not, but you start seeing more. And I think
Mhm.
you're more in tune that way. And uh, going out on hunts with my dad, we'll be sitting up on the side of a hill, glassing a meadow down there, and you'll just see this figure upright just run through the trees. Or we'll be there and you start hearing it sounds like a bunch of monkeys or apes out there just calling and just gutturally stuff. I can't imitate what they sound like. I'd make a fool of myself. But you know so throughout the years we just started I just started pulling information in. After when I first seen that family, I started taking it more serious. It hit me in the head like, wow, I want to know more about these guys. So I started paying attention to a lot more of what my parents would say. And when I would take off by myself, when I was very, young, 13, 14, I would go out uh, purposely uh, to check out some of these structures and see if I can find them. And when I find them, I get fascinated, like, oh my God, here they are. And just from there, I just started developing from experience. Uh, One thing leads to another as far as structures and Sasquatch and footprints. Uh, I started figuring out they have movement patterns for summer, drawing into winter. They start moving around, moving into winter areas. They kind of leave their areas, and I start figuring out they're always hopping around. They're always moving around to different areas.
Where did they go during summertime?
In summertime, they go up higher into the mountains. It generally will head higher up in elevation. You want to pay attention to the game movement, deer movement, elk movement. They tend to follow game. So wherever the elk are migrating to, the chances are that's where they're migrating to because they eat meat, elk. They eat elk. They eat deer. They're also they eat a lot of vegetation too, mushrooms and stuff like that. But you want to pay attention to the migratory patterns of elk and deer, and you're going to find the general area where they are also moving to.
I think that the forests are very enchanted. There's like a lot of unknowns, and you can kind of get like an intuitive sense about a forest where it's like there's something in here, but I don't necessarily know what it is. And like from my own experience, uh, there's this one time where I was just walking through, and I get this gut feeling, like this utter feeling of dread. I'm just like, oh my god, I am like losing my mind right now, like for some reason. And then this like little thought came into my head that I observed, and it was like, you'll know when a big predator is going to enter into the area. Like that's what the thought had said. And so as I was feeling like a bunch of fear, and I was like, I don't know if I should keep going in this forest or not. I was all by myself. I still kept going because I was like, yeah, let me just finish this hike. And as soon as like I keep going, I hear like this weird sound, and then the sound turned to a rattle, and
Rock
then
rock clacking, like two
no, no,
rocks
it
being
was
clacked.
it was actually just a rattlesnake. And I looked down just in
Uh,
time, and I moved out of the way as soon as it lunged at me. But that's just like
Ooh,
a small little thing that that you can pick up with your intuition. And I think that if you pay attention to it, you'll start to find more things. So like when it comes to you doing like Sasquatch research, how much of it when it comes to finding these things is like intuition? How much is it you observing things and analyzing things and you like saying, okay, this is how I should go this direction? So like how much of your research is intuitive and how much of your research is analytical, looking at different structures and observing the game and things like that?
it'll probably be half and half. I do get struck with I don't know what you would call it, a feeling. I don't know. My wife had notices it too when I'm actually driving down the road. When I'm headed down the road, and there's thick forest and mountains everywhere because we sit at an elevation of 8,000 feet up here, and I'll be driving along and I'll snap into the forest and I'm like, That's the spot right there. That's a good spot. I need to figure out how I can get in there. And that's me getting my little spidey senses are going off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times, like the three Sasquatch that I seen 4 months ago, 5 months ago up at Johnny's area up here, the same thing. Uh, I will get out of the vehicle. I'll pull up to an area. I tend to read the land. I guess this is a lot of my Native American side. I tend to read the mountains. I tend to read the land. I tend to read the type of trees. And I've figured out what type of trees, what part of the land, what part of the mountain those guys are residing on, what side of the ridge they're on due to the sun, uh, the pattern of the sun, of where it's going to be shady and sunny at certain points of the day. There's a lot of aspects that go into how I find these creatures. And I'll go in and I'll find a spot, and then sometimes I'll be hit with the spidey sense type thing, and other times I feel absolutely nothing. But I'll go in there and I'll investigate. No cameras, no nothing, and I'll walk back in there. I'll stand there for a few minutes and I'll just look around, kind of take it in. And if I see a structure, sometimes I go into areas where I see structures, but I absolutely no Sasquatch activity. And I'll document a few structures. So where I seen those three Sasquatch, that's what I was doing. There was one area west of where I seen those three. I put two and two together on their pattern of how they run along the side of this kind of a half bowl down this mountain. And I told her, I said that makes sense after I've seen these things, because I driven up and I got hit, and right away there's an X right off the side of the road, and I got hit, but my little spidey senses went off. And I told her, I said, right here, I got to get out and investigate this area, man. I'm getting hit with some feelings. I jumped out. Oh, you better believe it. Structures everywhere. Bends stuffed in the ground, the top of the bends, and a lot of the bends. So, you'll have a bend, and then you'll have a log laying on the back side of it or the front side of it. And I was back there documenting all this stuff, and I look over, and there's three of them. One standing above the bushes like this. Another one was half behind a tree, looking at me. And he walked out, and he took a right step, and he flipped his hand up like this. He took a left step, flipped his hand like this, and went behind as he glanced at me a few times. Then over here to the left, there was a smaller one, probably a little bit shorter than I am, because the Sasquatch up here, I haven't seen real big ones up here. And he come up out of the bushes looking at me. And as he's walking away, he looks at me, and he's moving the brush out of the way, all hunched over, looking back at me. And then they went into the brush, and I got on the radio with my wife. I said, "Oh my God!" And adrenaline's going, and ran back up to the vehicle. And I said, that confirms it for me. The direction that they were moving was in that area that I was on the other side over there, where there are some structures. And I told her, I said, I bet they move up into that area. And I said, I bet if we were to leave here and go to that area and move down in there, I bet you we would cut into those guys moving alongside in that half bowl into this area. Mm-hmm. So I look at a lot of aspects. First, the game in the area. Second of all, I'll get hit with feelings. Water would be in second. Third is the feelings, because I also figure out where the water's at, where the creeks are coming out. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Where natural springs are popping out. Look for all these aspects, and you're gonna probably run into one.
Cool.
Be prepared though. Sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not.
Yeah. All right, let's pull some pictures. Let's see. So this first little couple of slides are going to be of like actual Bigfoot. So can you tell me about like these two pictures right here? Like, what was the story behind these?
The one with me and the Sasquatch, and you can see the Sasquatch, the dark figure on the right-hand side, and then you see me on the left. We'd actually kind of went up for a little barbecue way up in the mountain up here one day, and I told my wife, I was getting a feeling something was up, in the forest, and I I carry a 10 millimeter on me, and for protection. You just never know what's going to get crazy out there, and you need to protect your life or whoever you're with. So I didn't have my 10 millimeter on me. I had my big knife. I threw my knife on. I grabbed my camcorder. I told her I'll be right back. I had the radio on me. So I crossed the small creek. There's one area that you can cross, otherwise it's waist deep. Really cold. There's a little bit of snow on the ground here and there. And I walked back in there. I started getting hit with an unbelievable amount of fear for no reason. I don't get scared out in the woods. I'm a crazy country boy, man. I'll take on moose, grizzly, bear. I don't care. Mountain lion don't scare me. I started getting fright. I was trying to compose myself on camera, and my hands were just shaking, just unbelievable fear.
Yeah, saying that was the exact same as me when I experienced that rattlesnake thing. I just couldn't. I could barely keep going, but I just pushed through because I was like, "Why am I? Mm-hmm. I shouldn't even be scared right now." But keep going.
That's kind of what. Just kept going forward because I started finding some couple of structures, and I panned around. There's that thing looking at me, and I said, "Oh my God, I've got to leave where he's standing. That's where I got to exit to make it back across the creek and get out of here. I can't go back this way. It's way too thick. I'll tear myself up." And I on video, I'm looking right at it, and I'm just trying to not acknowledge him, because obviously he's the one that's portraying fear to me. He didn't want me there. So I just, bucked up, grew a pair, and just started walking next to him. As he's over here and I'm walking next to him, I keep looking at the corner of my eye and panning my camera that way like that, and I panned over there again. Gone. No sound, nothing. Like the wind, gone. And I started breathing hard, and I videoed another structure real quick, and I shut the camera down and took off. And I told my wife, I said, I just had one in the trees looking at me. I caught him right on camera. And then, so I went back about 3 weeks later with my brother-in-law and my niece, and I had them hold the camera up, and I positioned myself really close into the where to get that comparison picture. And I was standing right where he was at, peeking out from behind those aspen trees, and I had him take a picture just as kind of comparison. And he seemed like he was more on the skinny side. He's probably a little bit taller than me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty cool. I haven't gone back there since I went back there with my niece.
Yeah.
I need to visit back there again and see what it's like if I get hit with fear like that again, or what's going to happen, and have the camera rolling.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so the second picture, there's a Sasquatch walking through the woods right there. And I wasn't intending on investigating that day at all. I was busy fishing. And directly west of that, there's a lake. And I went into that lake, and it's a couple of miles away. And I went into that lake. Oh, it's busy. And I told my wife, I said, well, shit, let's go find another spot. I went cruising by, and I seen the dirt road, and I've investigated this area before. And I told her, I said, let's just go take a quick look right up here real quick, see what we see if there's anything new. I hadn't been there all winter long, and this was in the spring I got this picture. So all I had was my cell phone on me, and I was cruising along. I looked into the forest. I seen some strangeness going on in there. I didn't know if the wind had did it or what was going on with that. I've been in the woods enough to know if something moved, a new tree fell, or whatever. So I told my wife, I said, I'll be right back. I grabbed my cell phone to take pictures of it if it's Sasquatch related. If they did it, I've got more evidence. So I walked about 60 yards in there, and when I looked at it, it was just this tree that had been blown over and swung off to the right due to a rock in front of it. So I'm looking at a root ball, but it was completely natural how that happened. And then right when I got to that, I heard this jibber jabber off to my right, speaking their language, real deep, just sounds cavemanish, just but
Huh.
just weird jibber jabber. And I knew exactly what it was, and I froze, and I picked up my phone, and I'm getting ready to uh, hit the button to take pictures and stuff. And sure enough, there he comes walking through the woods. He's just strolling, hunched over, just walking like McGregor in the ring. You know how McGregor's real talky and he's walking like he. That's the way it was walking. And
That's
all
probably
black.
where McGregor got it from. The walk.
Yeah, probably out there jogging in the woods and sees one walking like that. He's like, I'm gonna take it up. But
Yeah.
so I took 4 pictures and I caught him each frame in a 1 or 2 second window there walking by. And I ran back down to the truck and I said, I'm shaking, I'm breathing hard, and I said, oh my god, I just got another one on freaking camera, and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And I pull it up on the cell phone, and I show my wife. I said, there he is walking through the woods. It was just blown away. They sometimes you just never know when they're going to come out. And if I would have had my 4K camcorder, very expensive camcorder, I could have got some really good footage of this guy just on video trucking by. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, they seem to always be peeking out though. Like I don't see any videos that are confrontational. Like bears, they'd confront you or scatter away. Like you'd see them visually like that. But with a
Yeah.
lot of photos of these, I just see them peeking out from the trees and things like that. Like, why do you think
Yeah.
that is?
I think it's a nervous gesture because a lot of them, they're behind the tree. They sit there and go like this, and it's like I could see you, and they're back and forth, and
Uh-huh.
I determine they're peeking at you. They probably want to understand you more, but they're more on a nervous fact. You got to understand, these creatures are probably very old, millions of years old, and it's almost the same concept. If you're looking into the woods and you see something out there, what do? You kind of rock back and forth. You're kind of all over the place looking. My theory about when they're peeking like this, I think it's more of a nervous reaction that they don't really want to be there, but they want to stand there and they want to interview you, but they know you're looking right at them, and eventually they stop looking at you and they don't head off this way. They don't head off this way. They head off directly behind the tree, so you don't see them running off. You don't see them taking off. So it's the same aspect. If you're in the woods and you see something out there in the woods, and what do? You kind of bob back and forth, and you kind of bob all over, and you're looking at it, right? Am I right? You've done that, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the same aspect. You're curious, and you're bobbing back and forth trying to get a better look. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I kind of figure maybe it's got something to do with that.
Okay, let's see. We got a couple more, but I
Because I
think,
know they.
let's see. Here's some other pictures. Let's see. Okay, we can go over one of these here. Let's see, which one would be better to talk about? The one on the right or the one on the left?
I could just make it quick on both of them because it was kind of a quick incident.
Okay.
I was investigating these 2 pictures are shot in the exact same area. I've got a bunch of Sasquatch on video and pictures and stuff in this area. The camera that I had then wasn't the clearest, although you never can get a clear picture of a Sasquatch. I don't know why, it just doesn't happen. But the first one there with the 3 pictures, I was investigating and there was all kinds of structures around, and I just happened to come around this tree and come into this area and caught him on video, and I've seen the black spot behind the logs that are leaning over until that black spot decided it was going to move, and it walked underneath, ducked down and walked underneath that log, and then stood up on the bottom one there watching me. And then that's when I turned around and left. I don't know where he went. I got my evidence and I left. It freaked me out. And then the one on the right is a in the same area. I was investigating, same area, and I come to this corridor of trees where you could see all the way out, and I see this like a dark object or something. I can't make it out with my eyes right away. So I take my camcorder and I zoom in on it, and there's some logs laying down like this, and I see that it's just a rock. And I said something like that. He popped his head up and looked at me, and you can see his eyes are glowing white. He's got a really big brow ridge right here, and he's got a conical shaped head.
Yeah, I see it. Like it's a little bit like dented in and goes up like that a little bit in the picture.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of conical. He popped up, looked at me, and if I would have kept my mouth shut, I could have got a lot closer. But instead, I said that. He popped his head up and looked and ran on all fours, because Sasquatch will run all fours on all fours to stay low and out of view. And he looked at me one more time like this, and I sent you the picture of that. I don't know if it's in here or not. And he looked at me like that, and his conical head in black fur. And if you see it on the video, a lot of people will write me and tell me that looks like a straight up gorilla back, or a silverback gorilla.
I think I have it right here. I can play it. Let's see.
Okay. Yeah, but you could see his head.
Can you hear it?
Yep. If you look up there in the corner of the big tree, and where the logs go on the top, look at the top up there. You'll see him moving around. You'll see an elbow. There he is, right there.
Yeah.
And there he goes, taking off. You see his back. There he goes. He looks right at me.
There he goes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's horrible music. I just want to apologize. I found that music. I was able to use it. It's horrible, but it was better than being silent.
I should have muted that.
That's so horrible. I know. But you seen him pop his head up, look at me, and then he took off running. And then at the last minute, he looked back at me like that, and you see his back and his cone-shaped head. That was really I think a cool video.
That was interesting. I like seeing his arm come up and then like slide or look like he was going on all fours. I never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
This is the picture that. So this was interesting because I looked at your comment section on the video of this one, and everybody was pointing out like, go back to whatever time and there's something there, and then. Wait, did you notice it too, or did you look at your comment section as well to find it?
No, I didn't. This was the Granby expedition video. I actually found some really good stuff that day. This wasn't even far off the road. I got hit with that. My spidey senses went off. I pulled over. I told my wife, I said, I need to go up in here and look. And I grabbed my camera, I grabbed all my stuff, and I walked back in there, and there's all these structures. But on video, you could hear me stop talking, and then I'm like, there's something over there. I hear something over there, and I think I whistle or I do like a whoop sound, and I said, there's something over there. So I pan around, and as I walk further in and I kind of pan around, I did not see that kind of cloaked face looking at me. And see that rock with that small log wrapped around it?
Mm-hmm.
What you'll do, usually there's more than one, and I've seen so many logs wrapped around the top of a rock like that, it looks like a giant basket. So as I'm walking by, I didn't even notice it. I didn't pay any attention because I'm trying to listen to this thing. I'm slightly nervous because I'm hearing things move, and I'm trying to document these structures real quick. And I panned around, and this guy, he's right in the area, all kinds of structures and stuff.
Okay, you think that's a spirit, like, or what do you think that is?
I personally think it's a cloaked Sasquatch. Sasquatch will cloak themselves in a manner like this, and you can't see them. They're blended in. I don't understand it, but I know that's what it is. I've had people come at me and comment on this video and pictures, because I posted pictures online, saying, I think that's a demon. And I said, well, shit, I hope it wasn't a demon.
Why do
I've
you
had
think
other
a
people tell
Sasquatch
me,
can cloak itself? I mean, if it seems like a normal primate or like a human, you don't even think that they can cloak themselves. So, I mean, what's
well,
the thought behind that?
I don't really have an explanation for it. I just know they
Okay.
can do it. That's just from experience of seeing them uh, just kind of go away. And, I've seen 6 or 7 of them in my life. It's like they unzipped reality and stepped in this pocket and then they were gone. They are a flesh and blood creature, but they also have the hair on their bodies is not like fur, it's hair like a human hair, but they don't have a medulla in their hair like you, me. Everybody's got a medulla of certain sizes. Every animal's got a medulla of certain sizes. The Sasquatch is completely translucent. And I actually seen a deal on TV one time where they were talking about the Sasquatch in their hair, and science is starting to recognize that they could possibly bend light with that hair, with these translucent hairs, to make them look kind of invisible or cloaked out there.
Hmm.
Which I wouldn't doubt it. That kind of makes sense, maybe. And I've even had people say that this is an alien looking at me. I personally don't think it's an alien. I think it's a Sasquatch looking at me, and I think I got a closer picture of it too. That it's
I
you
didn't,
can
I
see
didn't put it on here.
the face.
Let's see. Yeah, I didn't put it on
I've
here.
got a couple of filters.
The cloaking theory, I think that is real, but that creatures can do that. Can you can you see that pretty good?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard, but you could see him up a little closer there. But
Yeah. So,
yeah,
all right.
yeah, yeah. I
Anyways,
mean, that's what I was explaining earlier. Is Sasquatch can do things that are above our understanding, and a lot of people, even this, they'll probably be like, "Oh, nah, I don't believe that." It's like whether you believe it or not, it's there.
with the cloaking stuff, I think that's 100% a possibility as well. I think also aliens do that as well. Uh, I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh yeah.
if you
Oh yeah.
if you neutrally will walk into the forest and allow yourself to just sense and feel whatever's in there and experience whatever's in there, you'll find that it's very magical to even go into a forest. Uh, so, I mean, I've had my own intuitions about it. I think saying it on camera though would be a little bit crazy for people because it's like, you know, you're sensing these things, but you don't have objective evidence or anyone else experience to go off of. So I think with a lot of, especially with Sasquatch, you've gone very deep with this stuff. So it would make sense that people would, doubt the stuff that you put out there and things like that, or say, hey, this is not real. Or, but obviously now you're starting to put stuff together and you have pictures and videos, and it's quite cool.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so you're talking about tree structures. So we got a couple of pictures of tree structures. Uh, uh, is there any that you want to go over? So I got a couple of these. This one, this one.
Um. Uh. I don't really. I try to understand these structures and the meaning behind it. I think a lot of them, like the one here, this teepee type structure. I've had people come at me and said, "Oh, humans built that." I'm like, "No, humans didn't build that. Why would they do something like that? There's no hunting. There's no logging. Those logs that are consisted into that tree structure right there are very heavy. Nobody go walk that far off trail into the woods just to put something like that up. And I know humans will make these teepee structures, but they're generally close to camping spots and they're real clean. They're real pulled in at the bottom and they're just real uniform. Sasquatch make them real wide at the bottom. They're real weaved in at the top. Like the top is very weaved in, and they've got one log that comes way off of it. And I think maybe that might be, uh, it could be a hunting blind for them because I know generally when you find these, they're right next to game trails. Um, and then the one on the right with the rock on it, I have no clue. But all these logs are are stacked on top of each other, perfectly balancing right on top of that rock. All these logs are just stacked up to make, if you look at it from the air, it looked like this big star structure, but it's all balanced right on top of these rocks like that.
Yeah, I thought that was
It's
crazy. That's what I put
odd.
on there. I'm like, how is that balanced like that?
Yeah, and most of these logs, they're all off the ground, 2 foot, 3 foot, and you could get under there and look all the way under all these logs. It's like, how does that happen? Unless they were manipulated by hand and manipulated with a purpose. There was some reason why these were made. It's an ancient visual language, is what I've always said. It's very ancient. It's something they've been doing out here in this forest since way before Wiki came along.
You think it's like a crop circles, like the alien, where people say like alien crop circles, things like that?
Yeah, like a crop circle. There's a message behind that. That's a symbolism. It's a more complex. These guys throw out with logs, and it's almost like the same purpose. That's kind of funny that you said that. It's like a crop circle made out of wood sticks, wood logs, and it's a language, And when others come along and see this, it's some kind of symbolism. They know what it means. It could mean water in the area. It could mean a certain amount of game in the area. It could mean, their little tribe is to the west or to the north, or it could mean certain types of plants in the area. Who knows what it means? I just know it's some kind of symbolism.
And now we got pictures of like casings and things like that. So I only got two right here. So like, which one are these all human feet, or is this which one's a squatch? Are all these squatch footprints?
Those are all Sasquatch footprints. Uh,
And
I
what makes
found these
it
at a little pond. Go ahead.
like what makes it a Sasquatch footprint, and what makes it what's the difference between a Sasquatch footprint and then what's the difference between a human footprint?
Well, the Sasquatch up around in this area on this western side of the United States, their feet are very, very similar to human feet. When they step in the mud and a human steps in the mud, it's damn near impossible to make out which is which. Now, the Sasquatch have a mid-tarsal break, and it's hard to make out a mid-tarsal break. These footprints right here, they were found. I found these in a little pond. I probably walked 3 miles off trail in the middle of nowhere, and I come across this little pond, and the bear, the moose, all these animals will use it. And I came across this track right here. All these tracks. The one track, there was only one footprint. The bigger one, I don't know, it's like 11 inches long. It's not that big, but it's really damn wide. It's wider than a normal human footprint would be. So I kind of figured this was the adult. They go out of their way not to make footprints. This one stepped out of the forest. It came out of the forest. It's put 1 foot in the mud, and that was it. That's the only track. And I casted that. And then there was 2 sets of tracks of these smaller ones that went alongside of in the mud, alongside of that pond, and headed back up into the woods. And there's all these little, what the hell you call those? Like rose bush thorns, bushes. They're single sticks that stick out of the ground. They're real short, full of thorns, and that whole area was covered. And that's like one indication. Like, why would somebody be out back here in that kind of environment, walking around barefooted? And who has a foot that wide on the left? That's like, that's like 2 inches wider than my foot. And but that the manner of where I found them, that kind of tells me that's Sasquatch. There's nothing else out there, and they're fairly flat-footed too. Sometimes they're not that flat-footed. Sometimes they do have a little bit of an arch.
Interesting. And this is
and a lot of people almost.
Go ahead.
And this one was found at timberline, at about 11,000 feet up. There's a lake that sits about timberline, just south of me, and it is a hell of a 4-wheel drive trail to get back to this spot. We went back in there fishing that day, and unfortunately I didn't have plaster of Paris with me to cast these. but I had walked to the south end of the lake, and I felt kind of nervous to walk that far back and on that side of the lake, nobody around. And these footprints actually come out of the water, walk around in the mud, and then they go back into the water. They never cross back up into the woods. It's kind of strange to me.
And you had a video on this one, right?
Uh, let's see. I don't think I made any video of that. I just had my cell phone. Because this was during Easter,
Okay.
and I wasn't intending on investigating Sasquatch. We were just fishing on that lake, and then I ran into this, and these were the only prints up there.
Okay, I was thinking of a different one then. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's all I have for the slides. But that's all. That's all interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So when it comes
And
to
they
like,
look those prints, they look very similar to human footprints. And I tried to stress that to people that when you come up here and you look at some of these Sasquatch and they leave a footprint, it looks like somebody stepped there, like a human stepped there. But then you got to take in your surroundings, the type of environment that's on the ground, and you got to think, well, who in the hell would be up here walking barefooted? You know what I mean?
mhm. So is there any other things that you found out in the forest other than Sasquatch? Has there been other mysteries that you have yet to debunk yet?
And all the years that I've spent out in the woods, it seems like after my first sighting, I started seeing other shit out there in the woods. I've seen little people out, and Native Americans talk about these little people right up here in Wild Basin. I seen a little person. He was hairy like a Sasquatch, but he was only, 12 foot, 8 to 12 foot tall. And I was investigating Sasquatch, and I thought it was a rabbit or a squirrel running at me. And I seen him in the corner of my eye running at me, and I looked like this, and he was only about 4 foot away, and he damaged a mushroom as he's running by really fast. He ran into a thicket behind me. And I got on the radio and I told my wife, I said, I just seen a little dude run by me. And I broke out my camera to try to get video evidence of this little fellow that just ran into the bushes and thickets and mess of stuff behind me.
Uh-huh.
And I never did find him, but I witnessed him. In the corner of my eye, I thought it was a damn rabbit or something running right at me. And I looked like that, and he ran past me, and I watched him run into the thicket right behind me. And I was like, oh my God, I just seen a little dude. He's real hairy, like a mini Sasquatch.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was Sasquatch related. I mean, I'm sure there's other things out there that are coated with hair, but I've seen a lot of strange things, creatures in these woods out here that people don't understand, and I don't understand. I just know that I've seen them, flesh and blood right there.
What else? Like, have you seen?
I've seen Dogman probably about 5 or 6 times in my life, and I don't care to ever run into something like that again. I don't
Seems
think he's
scary.
being real nice. It's scared, frightened me beyond belief. Looking at this thing, probably 50 yards away, 40 yards away, real tall, 8 foot maybe, give or take. Had the head of a dog, black. Every one of them. Well, one was kind of a more of a dark brown, but they just had this head, and a couple of them had more of a Batman-looking ears to them. Their ears were straight up, almost like Batman,
Yeah.
and snarling and growling and deep gutturally, And I was just like, nope, I'm gone. F that, It felt like it was going to give me a heart attack. I was so scared. So, and some people that say they've seen those things, they can be nice and they can be mean. And everyone that I've ran into has been a little on seemed like the aggressive side. Maybe they weren't intending on hurting me. They probably just were like telling me to get the hell out of here. And that was their way of telling me, is just being real, vocal about it.
Mm-hmm. Anything else, like skinwalkers or anything else?
I don't think I've seen Skinwalker. I don't know. Maybe some of these creatures out here I've seen were Skinwalker. I've seen a lizard person before. I've seen one of them one time. and that was up in Pagosa Springs, Colorado, which is funny because that's not far from the Dulce UFO base. And again, I was out investigating Sasquatch. I know a lot about Sasquatches because Sasquatch aren't, they will interact better than anything else out there. Let's put it that way. And I was in Pagosa, and I happened to look over. I thought it was a strange tree when I looked at it, like a tropical tree, until it moved. And I realized that that wasn't the stump of a strange tree. And it looked at me, and it went like this with its hand to block its face. It just went, it did this kind of number, and then it went down behind the bushes. And I said, "Nope," and I took off. That was obviously a lizard. It was scaly. It had like these ridges on its head, and it was real. Its chest and underneath its here was this color, and
Mhm.
the top part was more of a, like a, maybe a dark brown or dark greenish color, and it just put its hand up like this as soon as it noticed that I noticed it, and that's I took off. That's the only time I ever seen something like that.
Huh. What would you say to people who are researchers themselves or want to start researching? Like, what would you say to them? Like, how can they get prepared for these kind of things? You know, is there any like advice that you give to Sasquatch researchers and things like that?
I would go in there with an intent not to harm, of course. Go in there with a good heart. Um, if you want to find them, uh, be real respectful of them. If they get too aggressive with the wood knocking, and you run into them and they really start get kind of crazy with the wood knocking and vocals, I highly suggest just turn around and leave, and then maybe come back about a month later. You don't want to crowd them. One of the main things is these are living beings out there. Be super respectful. If you carry a gun, don't pull that gun out at them. They're gonna find that as a threat. It's fine to carry a gun. You need protection out there. I advise it. Never pull a gun out on a Sasquatch. I know that's happened before. Don't ever do it. And if you do pull the trigger, you may not make it out of there. And I don't know, just follow the steps that I was saying about how to find a Sasquatch. Learn to read the land. Learn to read the trees. Learn to read the water. Learn to read everything as they do, and you'll run into them. And by all means, don't gift them food. Please don't do that. That's a fair warning right there. Don't gift them food. You hear people about gifting them food, and they think they're a bundle of little roses. They're just these really spiritual little peaceful beings out there. They're not. They can be very peaceful. Just don't take it like that. You gotta remember these things are like some kind of hominid, humanoid creature out there. You don't know what they're thinking. Uh, just show a lot of respect. Leave them some toys. That's always advisable. That's totally fine to do that. I don't recommend calling. If you watch any of my videos, I don't really call or wood knock at all. Every now and then, I'll say, "Well, I don't recommend this, but I'm just going to try it," because you are speaking a language when you do that. You don't know what you're saying. Um, it's just like walking up to a freaking, you know, Russian or Chinese guy and saying a word because they said it, and you just called him an effing asshole, gay, whatever, and he's gonna knock you out. You know what I mean? You got to understand. Once you understand what this language means, then maybe so. But I just don't. I don't advise any of that. Just use caution. Don't gift. I don't recommend. That's up to you. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just advising not to do any of that. Go in there with a really good heart because they do know if you've got bad blood, and they know that. And don't go in there with the attitude you're going to go in there with fame and fortune. I only do it because I want to educate people. I want a full classroom that I can educate, and that's my mission is to educate people and open their minds, open the person's mind, open their mind to the reality of everything, and not just waking up, going to work, get off work, go to sleep. wake up, do it all over again, pay bills. That's not life, man. You know, there's so much out here to experience. So, yeah,
So is that you would say the reason why Sasquatch research is important is that it opens up people's minds to new experiences and a whole nother reality shattering yeah experience.
yeah, yeah. When you see one of these things, it'll shatter your reality. A lot of Sasquatch researchers, and I'm not being mean or anything. It's just the way it is. I've had them attack me before. You know, that's something you don't do. You know, they're only in it for the fame and fortune. They want their name behind it. You know, like the Bob Gimlin, Sasquatch that was filmed back in the day. You know, they want their name. They want that fame and fortune behind it. And if you're another guy that's in it and finding good stuff, they usually will try to go after you and attack you because they want to be the only ones to do it. It's like, I'm sorry, you can't be the only ones to do it. We're all in this together to try and figure out this species and try to learn from this species because they probably can teach us a lot. It's just they don't trust us, and I honestly don't blame them.
Do you think the government knows about all of
Absolutely,
this?
absolutely. Yeah, they
Why do you
have
think
them in their
they?
possession.
So do you think that they? How do you think then they found out about this kind of stuff?
I don't know how they found out about it. They know everything. They know everything about aliens. They have aliens in custody. They have Sasquatch of all different types in custody. They have the chupacabra creature, which is very real. I haven't seen one. They have them in custody. I mean, they have a lot of things in custody that we don't understand. You know, they're not very nice about it. You know, but they have all this stuff. This government of ours and other governments across the world. You know, like Russia. They have stuff like this in their possession because they want to learn. I believe they want to learn their like the Sasquatch's cloaking capability, not being seen. I believe they want to figure that out. They want to steal that from the Sasquatch to use as a weapon, like everything else.
Okay. All right. And then my last question is, where can people find you? And any last words to the people watching?
I just want to say, first of all, to you, it was a honor being on your podcast. Uh, it was great. It was an honor to meet you. You're a really great guy. And the people that are watching this, always have love in your heart. Uh, and I deeply appreciate you coming on to Expanded Minds podcast to uh, watch my show, talk about Sasquatch. And I appreciate everybody out there for their effort on coming in and spending their time to listen to this. And I just want to tell everybody, keep your minds open, keep a lot of love in your heart. Don't listen to the bullshit that's going on outside of you. Just open your mind and have a lot of love in your heart and respect one another and bring people closer, not further away, and work together for uh, a better future for everything, yourself and everything in general. I hope that made sense.
That's a good one. Yeah, that makes sense. And where can people find you then?
You could find me on my YouTube. I have a YouTube channel called Project Sasquatch. That's where I post all my videos. I have a BitChute, BitChute. I just recently opened one of those up. I'm transferring videos into that because uh, YouTube actually went in and deleted 7 of my videos that had some really good Sasquatch stuff on it. So they won't do that. So I still have the YouTube. I'll post there and I post BitChute. If I have really good stuff that I don't want to post to YouTube because they'll delete it, you'll find it at BitChute. And again, it's Project Sasquatch. And then I have a Facebook group. It's called Project Sasquatch. And you can go in there, share your stories. If you have any pictures of Sasquatch or their structures, any kind of evidence, if you are also a researcher and you want to present your evidence and to people, You can post it on my site, and of course, I'll approve it. Anything Sasquatch, to help you out, so people can see your evidence of what you find at a different location. Because it's always interesting to see evidence from all the locations across the globe and how they're so similar to what even I got going on here and everybody else. But you can find me there on Instagram, Project Sasquatch on Instagram. You'll see a lot of reels and um, photos I post up there. And I started a TikTok too, just to try and reach people. Because, like I said, I can't educate if I have an empty classroom. I want a full classroom. I can educate people properly. There's a lot of people that are educating people improperly, and they're kind of a joke. Please don't listen to it. I go watch my videos. I'm very educational. You'll be pretty impressed.
That's true. I can second that. All right. Thank you, Zeus,
Uh,
for coming on. I appreciate it.